Hello and welcome. I'm going to be sharing a tool for self-care today, a little series that we can use to work into the tissue of right at the base of the cranium, down the spine, and into the glute area. So if you have neck tension, headaches, stress in the shoulders or in between the shoulder blades, sciatic issues, tension or tightness in the glutes or along the sacrum, this can be a wonderful routine to explore. I practice this probably 5 days a week at least. Some part of it, I'll break it up and use the piece that's most essential on a given day. As a body worker, I do a lot of forward reaching, right, and movement, and I tend to create tightness in my neck and shoulders from the work that I do. So this is a wonderful way for me to undo that on my own. So 2 tennis balls in a sock. It's been revolutionary for me, and I hope it can help you too. I'll meet you on the mat. We're going to start in partial recline, and we'll bring the tennis balls up underneath the cranium. We're going to bring them right at the ridge of the cranium, so where the cranium is rounding down toward the neck. There's a lovely band of muscles that attach here, and pressure here generally feels good and helpful. Let's hold the very edges of the tennis ball or the sock with our hands just to keep it from moving as we're starting here. We can zigzag the toes and heels out, let the knees drop in if that's comfortable for you. For me, that makes it more comfortable for my lower spine. And it's easier for me to drop into the experience of relaxation in the upper body. So as we hold here, let's inhale full breath. And exhale with an audible sigh with a... And we might do this a couple of times. Particularly if we're coming off of a long day, or if we're noticing, intensity in this upper body, anything that's really been bothering us. Just let it out with a... All right. So tuning in now to how we're feeling at the base of the cranium. We're going to move the chin up a little and down a little. So it's a gentle rocking up and down. And we're inviting the tissue to relax. We're looking for some sensation that we're in a good spot. Okay? Sometimes it can feel intense, but it shouldn't feel extremely painful or like so intense that you're having a hard time staying here. If you feel like it's too intense, can you move the tennis balls a little? And see if you can't find a gentler way in. So one of the keys for me in this process is that I'm taking the time to let my body get heavy down, to encourage my whole body to relax a little so that it can support the muscles that are really holding on. It can help them remember that they too can relax, right? And to sink into the experience. So sinking into the tennis balls, but also sinking my attention into what's happening in my body here. Can I let my attention rest in? Can I let my breath support? And I let my breath ebb and flow as I'm moving through this practice, meaning that sometimes the breath comes in nice and full, and sometimes it's a little more quiet, like the relaxed breath. I let it move here. it's important that you keep breathing. So the attention is tuning in, and I'm trying to do that without judgment, without trying to make it change in any way. And that's not always extremely easy to do here when we're having tension or pressure, pain in the body. Right? But can we just tune in and exist with the experience of the body right where it is? And as we listen, perhaps the body will soften down a little more, and a little more, and a little more. Okay. We're going to take it to the next movement. So I like to turn my head a little so that I'm really moving the weight of my head onto the tennis ball on the right side. That's where we're going to start. And again, you can adjust a little. You can move the tennis ball up or down or over. You're just looking for another spot to rest into where you can feel some tension or tightness in the tissue there. And the weight of the head on the tennis ball is like moving that tennis ball into the edge of that tissue. I like to look for a way into the tissue, which is often on the sides, kind of pressing into the area that's tight. And kind of giving it a little nudge and seeing if I can't soften around it. I am a proponent for a nice, slow way to move into the tissue. So if you've moved into that area, like my experience in this moment is that it feels complete. So I'm going to shift around a little and just look for another spot because I know there are plenty here for me. I do see it takes time. I'm actually going to move my arm to see if you can't see a little better. Yeah. Just resting in. So as I come in, I just noticed a spot, and I know noticing that I'm holding some tension in my face, probably because I'm also talking. So softening right at the bridge of the nose, softening the jaw. Lately, I've been bringing the tennis balls up into bed with me, and I'll spend a little time before I go to sleep. Just to make sure you're not too tired. So if you fall asleep with the tennis balls, that doesn't feel so great. And then we come back up through center. And again, so now I feel them slipping a little, so I'm going to move a little. And I'm going to hold the tennis balls as I turn my head to the left. And I'm going to say, oh, is that a good spot? Or do I need to adjust a little? So if you get underneath the occipital ridge a little bit more here, you might find a little more comfort, so you're not totally on the bone. And you can get into that tissue with a little more oomph. So softening the forehead, softening the jaw. So when we sigh, audibly or otherwise, we are stimulating the sympathetic nervous system, the relaxation response. So it can be helpful to explore that. And just notice also as you sigh, you take that big inhale, and then on the exhale, there's a release of the body, the ribs, the heart center, the weight of the upper body down. We might just look for another little spot here. And I'll just express that you can do any part of this offering that feels right or helpful for you on a given day. It doesn't have to be the whole thing together. And it may be that just coming into the occipital ridge and spending, 20 minutes there, taking your time with it, looking for little spots to get into, is the best medicine. I had dental work recently, and so this section here at the occipital ridge and down my neck has been really important to get into. So I'm going to have you bring the gaze back to center, and then we're going to move the tennis balls down the neck so you can move them a little lower. So for the longest time, I would kind of go through this pretty quickly. It didn't feel particularly effective. So we let the head kind of drop back and down. And we might lift and turn a little. Just see if there's an area in there that feels like it's helpful to get into. Or just being careful that it feels supported. Then we can go down a little further. So you get to support the body here by holding the head or releasing the head. Yeah. Then we're going to lift up and we're going to bring the tennis balls right in at that lower cervical area where that kind of knobby part is at the base of the neck, underneath that. And we're going to go along the spine and in between the shoulder blades. So it's helpful here to support the head. And then we're going to widen the knees again, zigzag the feet back in. And we have 2 control points now. And the control points are going to manage the intensity of what you're feeling. So if you bring the tennis balls here and it's like, whoa, and it often is at the very beginning, then you're going to really support the weight of the head. Can you let the elbows tuck in a little, kind of lock those fingers together, and let the weight of the head rest down so we aren't straining the neck while we're trying to encourage those muscles to relax, right? And then we can hang out here. And we can hang out and slowly lower the head down, or lift and lower. So getting to a point where that feels okay, where the body is feeling more receptive. And so for you, this might be it for the day, right? You might find a way to hang out here, rest. But if it feels like you're ready to explore a little bit more, as you plant the feet, you can lift the hips. And then you can explore some movement of the body up and down, which can move the tennis balls along the spine. Okay. So I'm going to show you just that movement here. Now, you don't have to go for the full movement right off the bat, but as you figure out where the movement is, you're going to go, oh, right, there's a spot. Yeah, I just found one. And then I'm going to hang out there. So I'm planting my feet. I'm supporting the weight of my head. I just had to remind it. And I'm going to hang out. So again, I'm trying to catch the edge of the muscle. I'm leaning into it a little with my weight. And then I'm going to try and soften the body. This one feels like I need a little fuller breath with. My head is lowering down as I soften and acclimate. I'm going to see if I can't lower my hips. And then maybe, ooh, there we go. Maybe lift up a little. And so I'm not expecting you to do everything that I'm doing every time. I'm more interested in you seeing what it might look like to explore a spot so that you can feel free to find your own spots and explore them. So there's the sense of curiosity about, oh, what is that? Oh, how does it feel? And then there's a respect, yeah? So we're respecting the sensations of the body. This is building relationship between body, breath, and mind. And what is the purpose? For me, the purpose is to soften, to gentle, to heal, to find space in the body so that I can feel better, so that I can release tension and stress that I am creating in this tissue because I'm a human being and I walk the planet and I use my body in different ways. So I'm taking care of my body here. So there isn't a need to push through or strain. There is a need for me and my body to practice relaxation, to practice softening, unwinding, letting go of the tension that might just accrue in my body emotionally, physically, energetically. And so this is the invitation. Curiosity, respect, and a kind of softening into the experience of self-care. Softening into the experience of self-care. Now, if you get to a point where you can rock up and down the spine, so what I have found that is if I can sink into some areas that are knotted, where there's a little bit of tension and more intensity in terms of the sensation, then at some point, as that begins to let go a little bit, I can rock more easily, although it can catch on your shirt. Hoodies are particularly challenging to work with. And then it's a lovely sensation for me when I can roll up and down. It feels more like a massage. It's a release of some lovely sensations in the body when I do that. And then I'm going to lift up and get the tennis balls. The kidney area right underneath the ribs, like this whole area for me is fairly tender with the tennis balls. I know that some folks use them there. So if you feel so moved, you can explore that. I tend to lift up and move lower. So we can come right above the pelvic rim and get into muscles that are attaching along the spine down toward the pelvis. Kind of sink in a little there. And we can do that. If you can see here, I'm letting my pelvis lower down a little and then I'm lifting it up a little, and I'm letting the weight of it move into those tennis balls. And then I'm gonna move the tennis balls down toward the sacrum. Sacrum is a triangular bone at the base of the spine. It's right in the middle of the pelvis. And we can come here, and again, you could hold the balls to make sure they're steady, particularly if you're on a slippery surface. And you might try to lift the feet up, lift the knees. Yeah, and maybe even rock a little. Just see if there's anything there to get into. And we can do that up and down the spine. I'm just gonna scooch myself a little here. I'm afraid I'm out of the frame. There we go. I'll lower it just a little bit more. So, in my work as a massage therapist, I find that often along that SI joint, the sacroiliac joint, so where the sacrum is meeting the pelvis, there's often a dense line of tissue that I'm working to help release. And so as I'm using the tennis balls just to go along and rock a little, I'm just creating a little bit of a massage kind of pressure into that tissue. And I know for me, this is an area that needs attention consistently. I had an injury when I was young, so still tends to come back into this left side. So then we're gonna lift up through the pelvis and we're gonna move the tennis balls over to the right. I think I'll show that side first. And so I'm really getting one tennis ball right on the outside of that sacral edge into the meat of the gluteus muscles. So you could find the edge of the sacrum, it's that bony part, and then just move the tennis ball over a little until it feels like it can really sink into some meaty muscles over there. And the other tennis ball kind of moves towards the outer hip. You don't have to worry about it. Really, the weight is moving into the one that's closest towards the sacrum. Now, this too can be fairly intense, so you want to find your way in, okay? So, feet to the mat. We can lean a little over. And we could explore a little rocking kind of movement here with the pelvis, kind of exploring the tissue. We might find the piriformis. If you have SI or sciatic pain, you might have heard of that muscle. Moves from the sacrum toward the hip, and it can be tight, and sometimes a nerve can get caught up in it, which can create that zingy nerve pain. Sometimes that's coming from up higher. So if you find a spot, so for me, there's one, that is a little more intense, full feeling, I'm going to hang out with it for a little while with pressing a little, follow it a little, and try to let my body drop down, attention moving in, softening my face. Like everything is going to be okay here. I'm okay. And we just follow it. So that area let go, and then I shifted a little bit and it went right into the side of another band of tissue that's like, and I'm gonna let it soften. You might wonder what it means. Like, how do I know that it's softened or that it's ready? Or I'm looking for the sensation to change a little. That's what I look for in my body. Feels a little warmer. The sensation softens or quiets. It's not nearly as potent or intense. A teacher of mine, Kira, says, if you're practicing intensity in the body, you get really good at intensity. If we practice subtlety and softening, we can get better at subtlety and softening. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to come back up. I'm gonna roll over, take the tennis balls, move my knees to the other side and bring that tennis ball underneath the left buttock on the outside of the sacrum, looking for a little meaty spot for it to sink into, grounding through my feet a little, breathing. I'm gonna start this little bit of a rock. So I'm lifting the front of my pelvis up a little and then letting it sink down a little. And maybe that isn't the rock for you. I'm trying to offer some simple ways in to help you begin the exploration, but you can take this in the way that your body needs it. So just looking for a little bit of subtle movement that's giving us a sense of how that tissue is feeling, how it's responding to the pressure. Does it like the pressure? Is it too much pressure? Is there a way to lift up off of the pressure or move the tennis ball? Does it want more pressure? And if you're one of those folks that feels like, I need more pressure, I need it harder right now, I'm going to encourage you to watch that response mentally and see what happens if you can really move your attention into that area that's feeling like there's a lot going on, right? It's wanting attention. And let the weight of your body drop down into the weight of the tennis ball. See if you can't invite that softening with your attention, meeting the sensation of the tissue. Like really listening in, looking for some slower exploration there. And can you soften other areas of the body to help that area let go? There are all kinds of tissue patterns out there. Like we all have our own, really. But sometimes tissue is really dense and tight. Sometimes that means it's super strong. And sometimes it just has a density to it. Whereas other tissue can be pretty soft and fluid, and we want to respect the tissue and try to figure out what is a helpful way in for our body. So I'm still moving a little, exploring a little, finding spots like I did on the other side. You can move, down along that sacral ridge. It's a pretty meaty area in the body, lots of big, strong muscles. You can move out towards the outer hip area, so more along this ridge, upper, down in between the hip and the sacrum. I really believe that there are all kinds of ways to move into the body, to heal the body. Just like there are hundreds of forms of yoga. Because we're all built a little differently, a little unique version of the universe. So how do we get to know our body's intent? All right. So we're going to come back up to the center point here and roll off the tennis ball again. Now I'm just going to show you another level of this here. You don't have to follow along right now, but you could follow along to play. If it was really intense for you just to rock over on the tennis balls, I suggest that you just pause here. You can look at it, you can know that it's possible. But I would work with just this scenario until things feel looser, easier, and they might be ready for a little more intensity or weight. So the next step would be, if you choose to, kindly, in a very friendly manner, and bringing the tennis balls underneath the sacrum, you can lift the feet up. You can reach up through the legs. You can hang out here and move. Right. I like to do this stretch here. I get this length. My legs, and I'm feeling it into my low back. And sometimes just rocking a little here. Ankle rolls. Sometimes a little shaking. And then we can kind of repeat this flow, lift up through the pelvis, move the block, I keep saying blocks, move the tennis balls to the right, and then you can lift the knees up here and roll over onto the tennis balls. Now you're going to get a little more pressure from both, so you may need to adjust a little, right? And so this has a lot more weight of the body on the tennis balls, which means it's going to be more intense, like you're creating some more pressure with the tennis balls into the tissue. There we go. So you want to listen and be careful to find the way in appropriately for your body. Shorten this a little, so just to demo on the other side, in case it's a little easier to see with the video. Bringing the tennis ball underneath the glute, and then I'm going to roll over onto the tennis balls. This side I'm going, ooh, there's a little more tightness right on the upper glute area, so I'm going to just Inhale, full breath. And exhale with a... I'm going to readjust where the tennis balls are. I'm just going to move the tennis balls to the side. I'm going to bring my arms out to the side and do some gentle twists from side to side. So exhale, lowering knees toward the left, turning the head gently to the right. Inhale, center. Exhale, lowering knees to the right, pressing through the left shoulder, turning the head gently to the left. Coming back to center. I'm going to reach my arms up overhead nice and long. Bring them behind my head. I'm going to traction my cervical spine here. And I might tilt or turn a little. Noticing those muscles, how they're feeling. Hopefully they're feeling a little different. A little easier. I'm lowering down. So another thing we could do here is to bring the tips, the pads of the fingers right along that occipital ridge and do some circles. And you can lower the head and do circles along the back of the neck. And squeeze off the tops of the shoulders. Take a moment to close the eyes, turning attention in. Gratitude to the body, the breath, and the mind. May we remember how to soften and gentle and unwind, that we might create more space and ease and the spaciousness we need for healing to occur. Taking your time to get up if you're headed somewhere. Or simply turning me off and going to sleep. Thank you for joining me.